Professor. Do you have a moment?
Well, I am kind of in the middle of something right now, but you know what? It can wait. It can wait. What can I do for you, Johnny?
I have a question about why Mono Blue Tron doesn't run Karn or Emrakul.
What's the question?
Why doesn't Mono Blue Tron run Karn or Emrakul?
Ha ha! Johnny, that's a question many Magic the Gathering players ask.
Yep.
Many.
Uh-huh.
It's asked a lot.
So what's the answer?
Okay. Let's turn to page 563. Well, the most noticeable difference between Mono Blue Tron and Green Tron variants like Red Green Tron is the lack of Karn and Emrakul in the blue versions. There's actually several reasons as to why Red Green doesn't want to run cards like Karn. One of the leading ones is that Red Green Tron is engineered for assembling all three Urza lands as quickly as possible. Mono Blue uses the Urza lands, but it does not rely on having them all together on turn 3 for the win. It is focusing on a game win based on locking out your opponents, first with counterspells, and then finally with a win condition such as the Academy Ruins Mindslaver lock. Here's the best way to think about it. Mono Blue Tron is control, and Red Green Tron is aggro. Why aren't you playing Karn and Emrakul in Blue Tron? Because it's control, and it is engineered to lock out your opponent. Red-Green is more like an aggro deck, in that it is looking to put a major pressure against your opponent early game. The main way it does so is by trying to assemble one of each of the Urza lands by turn 3. If you can achieve this, then you will have 7 mana at your disposal, and can drop a Karn turn 3, which is a major problem for your opponent. The deck utilizes land cards like Expedition Map and Sylvan Scrying, which can grab whatever Urza lands you are missing as you make your way towards turn 3. Adding to that is Ancient Stirrings, also in green, which lets you dig through the top 5 cards of your library and pull out the land you need, or, if you wish, pull out a colorless threat like Karn, or even a Wormcoil. This is also how you help ensure you'll not only have the Urza lands on turn 3, but also the needed Karn to drop. If you don't manage to get a hold of Karn by turn 3, then you've also got a nice backup in Wormcoil Engine. The deck runs a playset, and these apply a lot of pressure to your opponent as well. Some games can even be won with worms. At the very least, it leaves you 1 mana free to continue searching for Karn or another major win condition. In order to both filter all that colorless mana into green or red as needed, as well as getting much needed card draw, the deck has full playsets of Relic of Progenitus, Chromatic Sphere, Chromatic Star, and Prophetic Prism. Relic can even be handy if your opponent is trying any graveyard shenanigans. Red-Green also employs control in the form of board wipe as well. Since it is assembling the Urza lands fast and reliably, spells like Oblivion Stone and All is Dust keeps the board clean of any threats. Pyroclasm is really why we are in red at all and not just mono-green. Although some mono-green builds do exist, being able to wipe out early game threats from Geist to Goyf is worth the red splash. Usually. The template I am showing you here only runs 2 copies, but many Red-Green Tron builds run a full playset. Finally, we come to the big win condition. Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn. An Eye of Ugin is run as a tutor for Emrakul, or failing that, a Wormcoil. Most decks only have need of a single eye and a single Emrakul, although I have seen many versions trying for more than one Emrakul. A playset is usually excessive, but you can experiment. I think you are fine with just one. There's some great alternatives to consider in addition to Emrakul as well. Many red-green Tron players add in an Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, to a Sundering Titan to give more options and more times when a win con can be dropped. Also, many players have recently been experimenting with Ugin, the Spirit Dragon, but in limited degrees, normally a 1 to 2 of. Ugin has some very versatile abilities, but costing 8 instead of 7 is what's making him not quite a perfect fit in this deck, although only time will tell on that one as he is still relatively new to the scene. In terms of land, the most expensive and frustrating part of the playset is 4 Grove of the Burn Willows. Yes, you need them, and no shocks and fetches just won't do. Red-green Tron, like many aggro decks, is constantly in danger of just getting beat on to death as it tries to race its opponents to 0. Many games are won by only a point or 2 of life. Points you can't afford to spend on shocks and fetches. The Burn Willows are thought to be fairly irreplaceable. If you absolutely need a budget alternative, the closest bet would be utilizing Carpulsan Forest and or a Copperline Gorge or 2, but this is nowhere near as nice. Some players do run a single forest since green is more in demand than red most of the time. Depending on your meta, Ghost Quarter and or Cavern of Souls can be added as well. Usually no more than 2 Ghost Quarters mainboarded and 1 Cavern of Souls, and these are much more likely to be found in the sideboard. I don't recommend mainboarding them unless you really know your meta needs them. The red-green Tron sideboard is incredibly dependent on meta as well. You have access to a lot of hate, but you need to choose what you want to hate on. A solid bet is 3 Nature's Claims for versatility with artifacts and enchantments, 2 more Pyroclasms if you are only running 2 in the main board, Combust to take out the big baddies of white and blue. Chalice was better when Delver was on the rise, but it is still a strong choice for shutting down a host of decks. Leyline of Sanctity does wonders against everything from burn to storm, but you're not going to be able to hard cast this. You need it in your opening hand. So I play at least 3 in the side because it is just that important. But again, there's just so many options. Some players have had great luck with Slaughter Games, sideboarded, and 1 Llanowar Wastes main decked to help with the black mana requirement. Hey, and if my merfolk ever get out of hand, there's everything from Choke to Boil to beat them down into tier 2. Altogether, this deck is far from cheap, but it is a top tier deck after all. More so after the recent bannings. In fact, it's fair to describe this as tier 1 again. Keep in mind that knowing why these decks are constructed the way they are is important, but it is by no means the only way they can be built. When you came in here, you didn't understand why Karn wasn't played in mono blue Tron, and now, hopefully, you have a better understanding of why, but that doesn't mean you have to follow that specific build. Experiment, explore, test. Magic still allows for innovation, and new discoveries are made all the time. It is critical that you understand the reasons for why the archetype decks are constructed the way they are, but that in no way precludes you from making your own brews. In fact, that knowledge will likely help you make your own brew bigger, better, and stronger.